Previously on Unscripted.
I'm nervous, but I'm also weirdly confident. I really think the Eagles are gonna actually. I don't think the game's gonna be close. I think we're gonna win by a lot. I think it's gonna be easy.
You're listening to Unscripted with Skip Sherman and Josh Obadia.
Okay, Skip, so today we're going to talk about our favorite Team Canada hockey players since the year 2000. But before we get to that, clearly your prediction was very accurate because the Philadelphia Eagles easily defeated the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl less than a week ago. So congratulations to you and your son, because I know you're both big fans of the Philadelphia Eagles, and congratulations also on the prediction. I don't know if you wagered any money on the game, did you?
The wagering was I should have just stuck with my gut on the wager, and instead I tried to get greedy and it backfired. But because I did like what you always tell me not to do, which is a parlay, and if A.J. Brown would have got 7 more yards, I would have won $420. But my son actually put a bet before the playoffs started, when there was not a playoff game played yet, that for the Eagles winning the whole thing, and he put $40 to win $350. And that, he just let it ride the whole time. And literally the week leading up to the Super Bowl, the betting site is offering him a payout of here, take $250 right now. They were willing to give him the $250 instead of paying him $350, and he was like, "Of course I'm not doing that. We're gonna win." And of course we did.
Nice, congrats on that. So, I watched the game. I know what happened in the game, and I know you've watched the game several times, so we don't need to talk about all the X's and O's. I will say that as I was watching, the Eagles made it look easy, almost like they were playing a minor league team or something. So I don't know if the Eagles were just super prepared or the Chiefs were just not prepared at all, which is surprising because they've won a few Super Bowls. But anyway, it wasn't really a game. It was boring.
It's weird to say that they were prepared and the other team wasn't, but that seemed to be what it was, right? There's so much revisionist history. All these, if you go back and look at all the predictions that from the pregame shows, ESPN, NFL Network, Fox, whatever, 3/4 of the so-called experts are picking the Chiefs, right? And then literally as soon as the game ends, they're like, "Oh well, we should have seen this coming." The Chiefs, the Chiefs O-line, and it's all revisionist history, right? Because the biggest problem is the national media knows nothing. They know nothing. The only media that knows about these two teams are the Chiefs media and the Eagles media. People that watched every game of those teams all year and know the teams, right? And the biggest reason I'm saying this, because the biggest reason why most people predicted the Chiefs to win is because they said, well, of course the Eagles have a better team. Well, we know that now, but of course people were saying the Eagles have a better roster, but the Chiefs had the better quarterback and the Chiefs had a better coach, right? And the thing that you just said is the Eagles coaches outcoached the Chiefs coaches by 20 miles. It wasn't even close on both sides of the ball, and that's what it came down to. They had a better game plan on what to do on offense. On defense, the Eagles knew exactly what the Chiefs were going to do. They knew everything they were going to do, every single thing they were going to do, and they snuffed everything out, right? That's all it is.
So Kansas City does definitely have the better quarterback, but I don't think Andy Reid is such a good coach. Everyone talks about how great a coach he is. I think he's quite overrated, actually. But that's a topic for another day.
Yeah. He's a very innovative coach. He runs some great offense. His the play calling that he does usually is so innovative and different. He gets people moving around. He does all kinds of stuff that you don't expect. But like you said, could all that stuff work if he didn't have Mahomes?
No, not at all. Right? I was just going to say it works because he has Mahomes.
Yeah, look, he's a winning coach. He's the only coach that's the winningest coach of 2 franchises, right? He's the all-time winningest coach in Eagles history and in Chiefs history. And he took the Eagles to 1 Super Bowl. He took them to 4 straight NFC championship games. So clearly he does know what he's doing, right? But in terms of this Chiefs dynasty, it's Mahomes, right? Mahomes is, when you watch Mahomes, it doesn't take you don't have to look at stats, you don't have to look at analytics, you don't have to look at anything. Just look with your own eyes. This guy does things that normal quarterbacks don't do. They can't do. right? He does things that other quarterbacks he makes everything look easy. But like the Eagles were ready for all of it. And I listened to like one analyst who broke down the X's and O's of the game, and they're like, the Eagles defense didn't run anything so exotic to stop him. The Eagles ran a high school defense. Like literally like the first thing you do when you're playing high school football. They rushed 4 and they covered everybody else. And the Eagles played a zone the entire game except for 2 plays. That's all it was. It was their 4 guys better than their 5 guys. Their 4 down linemen beating the Chiefs' 5 offensive linemen the entire game. And it was a destruction.
Okay, now to some important questions. How many people were at your house, and what food did you eat?
There was about 10 people at my house, and I made like a fantastic. It was so good. I made like a chicken cutlet bar, if I could explain it. So I had all these chicken cutlet pieces that I made the day before. I served them cold, and then I had all the toppings laid out. The bread, the cheese, pickles, hot peppers, lettuce, tomatoes, onions, and all these different sauces. And then everybody was able to just like make their own chicken sandwiches. It was quite epic. And then of course, there was pizza and fries and chips and the regular stuff. But that's what we had.
So I know that in Canada we didn't get any of the good commercials, but I was able to watch some of them the next day online. I really liked I think it's the Michelob Ultra commercial where they played pickleball with Willem Dafoe and Catherine O'Hara. That could have been my favorite commercial.
Yeah, I saw that one also only like online after. It was actually quite good. But did you see that When Harry Met Sally commercial?
I did. That one was good too, but I liked the pickleball commercial better.
I mean, the When Harry Met Sally was so good because okay, as it's happening, you're like, okay, it's the Mayo, and she's like, and then all of a sudden at the end, it's Sydney Sweeney. It was like, that was like really unexpected, So I really liked that one. I thought it was quite good.
Yes, it was. And I think there was one with Matt Damon and David Beckham. And to be honest, I'm not even sure what the commercial was for.
Oh, half the time you don't even know what's going on. And you know what the other thing is, and this is, if there's any American people listening, like American listeners, like you're not going to understand what we're talking about here, but like we don't get the commercials anymore. So like, it's so weird. Like, I don't know what commercials you got, but you didn't get this one, I don't think, because it's a Montreal thing. Amir. You know the restaurant Amir?
I do, yes.
So it's a chain of Lebanese restaurants here in Montreal. They run commercials during the Super Bowl, and they've been running the same ad for like 10 years. Like the commercial hasn't changed. The ad itself, it's the same. It's the same. And I'm like, man, these guys are getting a lot out of this 1 30-second commercial that they filmed 10 years ago. It's really quite amazing to watch.
I wonder what it costs to purchase 30 seconds, on CTV. I think it was $8 million to purchase 30 seconds on the American network, but I don't know what it is on the Canadian network.
Well, maybe if you're purchasing on CTV for a commercial that's going national, but like for something like Amir, like a local Montreal thing where they know that it's probably being targeted to only people in Quebec, I don't know how much they pay. I mean, I'm sure they're paying more than a regular ad, right? That's on during like CSI, right? Or whatever, right? So, yeah.
Okay, we'll be right back after this to talk about our favorite Team Canada hockey players since the year 2000.
You're listening to Unscripted.
I'm Joseph DeMedictis.
And I'm Ross Citrillo.
And we're doing this podcast so we don't have to go home and get a real job.
Exactly.
That's right. And we're doing it to tell you about our pursuit of the dreams we've had since being a kid, being young, trying to get into the entertainment industry. We're mid-career, sort of. We're kind of halfway broken in a way, but we both have these big dreams and big goals.
Aspirations, really.
For our careers.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. This podcast is about the journey through the industry, trying to make it, but trying not to have to give up.
So listen to our podcast on all the places you might listen to a podcast. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We have our own YouTube channel where you can watch the video version. All the links can be found at you'llnevermakeit.ca. Here's hoping we do.
And now, back to Unscripted.
Okay, Skip, we're back. And today's topic is our favorite Team Canada hockey players since the year 2000. So just to explain a little bit the criteria here. So we're looking at any international hockey tournament since the year 2000. We didn't include World Juniors. So obviously the Olympics and the World Cup that happened, I think, 8 years ago or 9 years ago. And we're not including the tournament that is going on right now. By the way, just so all the listeners are aware, we're recording this on Saturday morning. So the Canada-USA game in the Four Nations face-off has not yet happened. When you hear this, it will have already happened, but it hasn't yet for us.
Right. Right. I mean, the Four Nations is kind of the reason why we decided to do this topic. You know, all of a sudden, after like a huge break, like you said, there hasn't been a best on best hockey competition since 2016, and even then, like that 2016 World Cup is like, the format was so weird that is it really best on best because Canada defeated Team Europe in the final? Like, that doesn't count, you know? But yeah, I mean, who doesn't love international hockey, especially in Canada? This is what we live for, right?
Right. And so just a bit more criteria. So what we're picking is we're picking 3 forwards each, 2 defensemen each, and 1 goalie each. And I wouldn't be surprised if we have exactly the same players.
Well, so I was going to ask you, like, how hard was it for you to make your selections? Because for me, kind of picked themselves. And as I was doing this, I was like, these seem so obvious that how is it possible that you would have something different? Although the goalie, I'm not sure. Like, I'm not 100% sure we're going to have the same guys, but I'm pretty confident that most of them are going to be the same.
I mean, it's really difficult because we're asking each other to pick an all-star team of an all-star team. Like every team that was assembled was pretty much an all-star team. So now we have to pick the best of those.
And it's hard to go by stats because you're talking about stats during a tournament, right? Like the tournament could have been 5 games, right? So like, you know, maybe someone like, well, we're going to get to it, but like maybe someone didn't have that many points in the whole tournament, but they scored an important goal. You know, no hint there about what that is, but yeah. So it seemed like when we first proposed this, I was like, oh God, I'm gonna have to go through all the Team Canada rosters.
Okay, so I'll start and I'll give you my 3 forwards, and I'll talk very quickly about all 3 of them, and then you can tell me your 3 forwards.
Okay.
And if they're exactly the same, then they are, and if they're not, they're not. So my 3 forwards are Sidney Crosby, Jarome Iginla, and Joe Sakic.
Okay. Could I stop you before you describe it?
Sure.
Those are the same. I have the same 3.
Okay.
I have the same 3.
Okay. So, I mean, Sidney Crosby. So, at the Olympics in 2010 in Vancouver, he played 7 games. He had 4 goals and 3 assists. You know, that's a point a game. But more importantly, he scored the game-winning goal, the gold medal winning goal in overtime against the Americans. Plus, I saw a stat on television the other night. I think in Sidney Crosby's last 25 or 26 international games, he hasn't lost. Canada hasn't lost, which I'm not sure if I saw that correctly because it didn't sound right, but apparently he hasn't lost since like the preliminary round in 2010 or something in some tournament.
It's exactly that. My son told me the same stat when we were watching the Canada versus Sweden game the other night. And I was like, can that be right? Like, not that he's undefeated, but like 26 games, that's a lot of games, right?
Right.
These tournaments aren't that long, you know?
And maybe they're including the World Championships in the summer as well. I don't know.
They are. For sure they are.
But Canada must have lost some of those games. Like they won those tournaments, but they didn't go undefeated. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at it.
Yeah, and Canada doesn't win all the games in the World Championships, although I think they did win the year that he was there. Don't forget, Crosby hasn't appeared in that many World Championships because the Penguins are always in the NHL playoffs.
Right.
So I think there is one year that he was there that we won. Anyways, like I said, the World Championships, I don't even pay attention to that.
So next, Jarome Iginla. So he has 10 Olympic goals, which I didn't even know this. It's the most by any Canadian man in the modern era. So
Yeah.
he scored 3 in 2002. He scored 2 in 2006, and then he scored 5 in 2010. So that's a good Olympic career, I would say.
Yeah.
And then Joe Sakic. So in 2002, Sakic was the MVP of the tournament. He led all Canadian scorers with 4 goals and 3 assists in 6 games. So that's even better than a point a game. But anyway, aside from their stats and how good their stats are, you know, when you think of these guys, when you hear their names, you can actually picture them playing in these games because you've watched the games and you've seen the replays a million times and you know how important they were to Team Canada. So those are my 3 forwards.
I mean, like I said, I had the same 3, and I mean, you gave all the stats and everything, but it's basically like the number of appearances, you know. Crosby got screwed in 2006. They just didn't pick him, and that's probably the reason why they lost. Like, you know, honestly, there was so much revisionist history after the failure of the 2006 Olympics. And it was all about, oh, they didn't pick the young players. And the young players was code for, we didn't pick Sidney Crosby. Like, he was a rookie then, but he still had 100 points in the NHL that year. You know, like, come on. And, I mean, look, Crosby in 2010, he was like the face of Team Canada, right? In Vancouver, it was this whole big thing. And then he scored the biggest goal in the country's history, or one of them. I mean, people can go back to Paul Henderson, and there's Mario Lemieux. There's a lot of important goals in the history of Canadian hockey. Iginla, again, like, it's the number of times that he represented Canada, so many times, right? And then Sakic too. I mean, and also all these guys were all 3 of these guys were either captains, assistant captains in all these Olympics, right? And then, you know, just going back to Iginla, you know, he assisted Crosby's golden goal, right? He's the one that passed him the puck from the corner, right? And then Joe Sakic, he's completely dominated the gold medal game in 2002, right? I think he had 4 points in that game against USA. So, I mean, I think those 3 pick themselves. Did you have honorable mentions? Like, basically, when we said this is what we're doing, I was like, okay, well, let's start with Crosby, Sakic, Iginla, and let me see if I can get anybody else that could bump them off, right?
My only honorable mention would be Mario Lemieux.
I know I had him here too, but he only was at 1 Olympics.
Right, since 2000.
Yeah, since 2000.
Yes.
In this criteria, he was there 1 time.
Right.
Mario, yeah, and even in his performance, I mean, everybody knows Mario. Like, the first thing you think of when you think of Mario in the Olympics is that pass by Yzerman, that, like, or maybe Yzerman's the one that actually shoots it. Anyways, when he lets it go through his legs, you know, this play.
Yes, of course.
And Lemieux was great, but, like, he was there 1 time, and, you know, he doesn't have the resume of the other 3. And then the other guys that I thought of was, like, Yzerman, maybe, but, you know, and then 2 guys that people don't talk about because they just didn't get the attention is Jonathan Toews, who represented Canada many times, especially in the last Olympics where we were there. And people don't remember that Jeff Carter was actually the leading scorer when we won the Olympics in Sochi. but
I forgot that too.
But we hardly scored any goals in Sochi, if you remember. Like, we hardly scored any goals. It was
right,
all
because I think Babcock was the coach and he wanted to
goaltending.
play defensive style.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think there's no question about both our 3 selections. And we're about to do defensemen, and I don't know, are we going to have the same 2 defensemen?
Well, you go first.
I don't. All right, so defense, it's going to be weird if we have the same 2. I have Chris Pronger and Scott Niedermayer.
So I don't have either of them, actually.
Oh, I'm so happy. At least we're going to have something different to talk about. So, Chris Pronger, he actually competed at 4 Olympic Games, which is the most by any Canadian male player. Obviously, the first one here we're not counting in our criteria, which was in '98. But he competed in all the Olympics that we're talking about that happened in the last 25 years. He was Canada's alternate captain in 2006, and then he came back in Vancouver in 2010, also as an alternate captain. I think he's just represented Canada so well internationally. You can't really go by stats when you're talking about defensemen. We're not talking about. There's no Paul Coffey in our list, like that's putting up 10 points in 10 games and then scoring and doing stuff on the power play. Like there's no one that stands out offensively, I don't think, about any of the defensemen. So I just think Pronger has always been like the steady rock of the Team Canada defense over the last 25 years. And then my other pick, which was when I asked my son, like, who would you pick? And when it came to defense, he was like, well, Scott Niedermayer. Like, Scott Niedermayer was like my son's like one of his first favorite players, you know, at one point. And so he actually represented Canada at the Olympics in 2002 and 2010. He was the captain of the team in 2010. I don't know if you realize that. And he was there at the World Cup in 2004. He would have been there in 2006. Maybe we would have done better in 2006 if he was there, but he was out with an injury for that whole season and obviously couldn't play in the Olympics. Was that the reason why we sucked in 2006? Maybe. Crosby and Niedermayer would have changed the whole thing in 2006. So I just think Niedermayer is, again, he's just like the steady rock of the Team Canada defense. He's such a smooth skater, such a smart player. Like, he's the opposite of Pronger. Pronger is just this big, hulking guy that smashed people around. And Niedermayer just surgically killed you with skating and passing and just being in the right position all the time. So those are my two picks.
So those are excellent picks. And for me, this was the hardest position to pick because I thought they were, you know, those two plus two other defensemen that were really good. And so I didn't really know which two to pick. And I picked the other two, not the two that you picked.
Well, I mean, I had 3 honorable mentions, so like I could probably guess who yours are going to be, but go ahead.
So I picked Shea Weber and Drew Doughty.
There you go. I had those two as honorable mentions.
So Shea Weber, so he's actually the leader in Olympic points by defenseman. He racked up 12 in 13 games.
Wow.
He won gold in 2010 and 2014. He also scored that huge goal against Latvia in a game that we almost lost.
Yeah.
Like, to think that Canada might lose a game to Latvia, I remember how nervous I was watching that game. So, and Drew Doughty, so he also won 2 gold medals with Weber at the same 2 Olympics. And he actually led all Canadians with 4 goals in Sochi. As you said, we didn't score a lot of goals in Sochi, but he led the team with 4, which is impressive that a defenseman led the team in goals.
Yeah. Drew Doughty is really like, I don't want to say he's an underrated Team Canada defenseman, but God, when he was there, he was so good. Like he always stood out for me when he was playing for Team Canada. You know,
he's
So,
what I call
yeah.
he's what I call a rink rat. Like, he just wants to play hockey 24/7. You know, when he's not playing, he wants to be on the ice practicing.
But it just goes to show, right? Because he's on Team Canada for the 4 Nations. And the thing is, he literally just came back from being injured. Like, he just came back like 2 weeks ago, right? He hasn't played this year in the NHL until a couple of weeks ago. So I just think he's quite an interesting player. The only other guy that I actually had, and Shea Weber, just to talk about Shea Weber, my lasting image of Shea Weber in Team Canada jersey, and you're gonna know exactly what I'm talking about, when he shot the puck through the net.
I remember that, yes.
He like his slap shot. Everybody knows Shea Weber's slap shot was crazy hard. He took this shot. It was in 2010, right? Yeah.
I don't remember the year. These years all blend together to me now.
Yeah, me too. And it literally, like, you just thought, oh, like the goalie, it went up into the crowd or it went behind the net. You didn't know anything. And then I just remember the announcer being like, I think that went through the net. You know, and then of course they slow it down and they show you that like the puck went through the back of the net. You know,
That was the
Just
first
crazy.
time and the last time I've ever seen that happen.
I don't think it could happen again. Anyways, the only other guy that I had an honorable mention, I don't know if you had any other than the 2 that I picked.
No, I
but
didn't.
The only other guy that I thought had consideration was Rob Blake, because I think he also played a lot of games, logged a lot of minutes. First pairing, the guy was they had, I remember they had like there was that the Olympics in 2002, they had like Blake, Pronger, and I think Adam Foote was there as well. And these guys just punished you. Like Rob Blake was like, I think he got more joy from like a body check than he did from getting like a goal. This guy, same thing with Pronger. So
Nice. Those are great picks. So I'll let you do the goalie first.
goalie was the hardest pick because we've had in all the tournaments that we've just mentioned, there was basically a different goalie that won each one, right? So, Brodeur won in 2002, and then it was Luongo in 2010, and then we had Carey Price in 2014. And then there was also the World Cup in 2004, which is kind of tipped the scales for me a little bit. Like, that was my tiebreaker in a sense. So I gave my pick to Martin Brodeur. I just think that, like I said, the tiebreaker was that he was the goalie in the Canada Cup in 2004, but he was also the backup on a lot of other teams. I mean, it sucks to say that like he was the backup for Luongo in 2010, like he was, and Luongo wanted out. He ended up kind of taking the starting job and running with it. But 2002, Curtis Joseph was the goalie at the beginning of that tournament.
That lasted one game, I think.
And then we lost to Sweden. We got killed, and they put in Brodeur, and then Team Canada didn't look back after that. And when you talk about Martin Brodeur, you think about like he's just very steady, right? But I just remember there was a save in that game, the gold medal game against the United States, when the game was still a little bit close, and he just came up with big saves when you needed it. This guy, like that's all there is to it. When you needed a big save, he made some crazy save that you couldn't think was going to happen. So. Obviously, so I just gave you my honorable mentions, Luongo, Price, but I think Brodeur for me won out. Now, one thing that my son told me about this, that was a good point. If we included World Juniors in this thing,
Yes,
Carey Price would be the goalie.
agreed.
Yeah, because he won the World Juniors and he won the Olympics, right? So like the others can't really say that.
So Martin Brodeur is an excellent pick. I can't even argue with that pick. I would love to have him on my team any day of the week and twice on Sundays. But I picked Carey Price.
Whoa.
I mean, Carey Price's stats, just listen to these stats. 5-0.
The stats are ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because he basically didn't let any goals in in 2014.
5-0 with 2 shutouts, 0.60 goals against average. That's insane. And a 972 save percentage. Now, obviously,
He didn't let in any goals.
He's playing with a bunch of all-stars in front of him, right? But every goal
Yeah,
he
but the
hits.
other goalies played with a bunch of all-stars in front of them too.
Right. So he had the benefit of playing on the Mike Babcock team, and obviously Babcock focused on defense. So that helped. But still, his numbers are insane. As you said, he also won the World Juniors. So I'm picking Carey Price, but you could convince me that Martin Brodeur is a better pick. You could.
Oh no, of course. Like I said, like even Luongo. If you would have told me it's Luongo, I'd be like, yeah, I can't argue with it that much. He was really important to the victory in 2010. So
What's funny is if we do this again 25 years from today, I'm not picking any of the goalies that are on the Four Nations team.
we'll see.
Okay, so that's our team.
I mean, I love doing this exercise. We haven't done sports in a while. And then obviously, with the Four Nations happening, it's kind of timely. So it was a fun exercise.
Okay, we'll be right back after this with some final thoughts.
You're listening to Unscripted.
Hey everyone, Skip here. I'm really excited to invite all of you to follow my new account at Skip Cooks on Instagram and TikTok. I'll be sharing my love of cooking with recipes in the form of 1-minute music videos, all set to some of my favorite songs. Don't miss out, follow me, and let's have some fun in the kitchen.
Unscripted with Skip and Josh is available wherever you listen to podcasts. If you listen to the show through Apple Podcasts, please leave a review. To interact with the show, send an email to skipandjoshshow@gmail.com. Follow the show on Twitter and go to Facebook to like the show page. And now, some final thoughts from the guys.
So final thoughts, I think we have the same final thought. I think we want to talk about a little bit about the Four Nations face-off, which is going on right now. We're in a weird position here in terms of podcasting because it's Saturday morning right now. So Team Canada's only played one game. And there's a big game tonight, obviously. And by the time this podcast comes out on Tuesday, I think we'll probably have played another game. But
right, by the time this podcast comes out on Tuesday, we'll know, I think, which two teams have made it to the final.
Yeah,
the final
exactly.
won't have been played, but we'll know which two teams are playing in the game.
So in terms of like the impressions so far, like I was pretty excited for it because I think it was a kind of cool idea to do this. It is weird that Russia's not part of it. I get the politics and all this, but like if you're gonna do a best on best and Russia's not there, it is a bit weird. But that, let's just put that aside. I called you. I actually called you on the phone, and it doesn't happen that often because texting is so simple, right? And easier. I called you during the Team Canada Sweden game, and I was like, "Can you believe what we're watching here?" Like I felt like I watched a lot of hockey this year, NHL hockey, mostly Montreal Canadiens games. And then as I was watching that Canada Sweden game, and we hadn't gotten to the 3-on-3 overtime yet, but like just the regular 5-on-5 play, and I was like, I feel like I'm watching a new sport that I'd never watched before. Like I felt like I was watching hockey that I had never seen in so long. The caliber of play is so high, the skill level is so high. There's no gooning around. The penalties, there's not many penalties because the players are just not chippy players. They're not, that's just, it's not happening. It's all skill. It's all skating. Connor McDavid is like, it's ridiculous how fast this guy is. Like, this is best on best, and he can skate circles around people. It was just a pleasure to watch the caliber of play on the ice. Like it was amazing.
Yeah, and there's also less whistles I found, so there's less stoppages in play. And like if you want to go to the fridge or something to get something to eat, you can't, which is a good thing.
They did something, and I thought you were going to talk about this because you probably know, and I may be getting it wrong. They've added a little bit of extra time to the commercials, but they made the intermission shorter. Like I'm talking about by a minute.
I haven't noticed that, but I'll pay attention at the next game.
And they're talking about how they think they want to do this in the NHL regular season next year because they think it's better. But whatever.
So you're right. These games are incredible to watch. The players are incredible to watch. I love that, in a regular NHL game, when there's a whistle, there always seems to be a scrum in front of the net, which takes forever.
Yeah.
None of that happens in these games. Because as you said, even the fourth line players, they're actually first line players on their regular team. So they're not idiots.
Yeah.
Although there is one idiot on Team Canada whose name I'm not even going to mention, who I hope doesn't play ever again. But aside from that, there's no idiots.
Didn't he score?
There's no idiots on this team. What's that?
But didn't he score a goal against Sweden?
Doesn't matter. The goal that he scored, he had an open net. It was a beautiful pass.
Yeah.
I could have scored that goal.
I mean, I know you hate Marchand. You don't even want me to say his name. It's like Voldemort in Harry Potter, which you don't even understand that reference anyways. But, I mean, he deserves to be there. He's one of the top 12 Canadian forwards. I mean,
maybe, but, there are other forwards that didn't make the team that if they were there instead of him, the team would be just as good.
Yeah, I mean, he's not filling a particularly important... I get it. I understand that. I mean, Canada's fortunes are going to hinge on Crosby, McDavid, and McKinnon. This is what it's going to be, right? The other guys are going to chip in and play well around them, too. Don't get me wrong. And also Makar. Makar is really important for Canada, too.
So I'm going to be nitpicky now. Even though I love this tournament, I'm going to be nitpicky and tell you what's bugging me.
Things that bug me?
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, so first of all, this is not about the tournament, but this is about the American coverage of the tournament. So I don't think the American media understood maybe until the first game they were comparing this to the old All-Star game, which used to happen at the same time of the year. And they were saying how this has replaced the All-Star game. And yes, in terms of the schedule, it has replaced the All-Star game. But this is completely different because the players actually care about this, whereas no one cares about the All-Star game. Plus, the All-Star game is a 3-on-3 game, and this is not. So the fact that they were comparing it to the All-Star game, that bothered me a lot.
When you're talking about that the players actually care, and I'm not, this is not a bold prediction. I think that you're going to know because you're hearing my voice saying it now, and you're already going to watch the game by the time you hear this podcast. The Canada-USA game is going to be a war. Like there's a lot of anticipation,
For sure. So the
yeah.
other things that are bugging me, and again, these are small things. Again, I like the tournament, but
who's covering it in the United States? I saw the panel,
ABC.
but I don't know what channel it actually is. But Wayne Gretzky's part of the panel.
I believe
right?
Wayne Gretzky is, or no, maybe it's. No, because Wayne Gretzky is with TNT, I think. I think it's Mark Messier and PK Subban work for ABC, I think.
But I saw a clip online of Gretzky talking about how you represented Canada. Maybe it doesn't matter.
In any case, the other things that bother me. So today, there are 2 games, and one of them is at 1 o'clock. Now, it's Finland and Sweden, so I don't know how many people care about that. But I don't think there should be any day games in this tournament at all, because there's another day game on Monday. Canada's playing in the day game on Monday. Now, I know that in the United States, Monday's a holiday, and in most of Canada, Monday's a holiday, but in your province, it's not. Now, it doesn't really affect you because I know you'll be able to watch on Monday afternoon, but there should not be any day games in this tournament. In fact, there shouldn't be a day where there's more than one game. You have enough time to play one game every night at 8 p.m. For example, tomorrow night, Sunday night, we're recording this on Saturday, Sunday night, the NFL season is over. There should be a game tomorrow night, but there isn't.
I know, it's so stupid because they don't want to go head to head with the NBA All-Star game, which is a complete joke. That's a joke and a half.
Exactly. Like, go head to head against the All-Star game. You'll see. And if people
They
don't watch,
actually
if people don't
They
watch the
actually-
hockey game instead of that stupid All-Star game, then those are people that wouldn't watch hockey anyway.
They actually should have gone head to head with the NBA All-Star game. They should have, because I think they would have won. You know what I mean?
So,
I mean, they're not going to win the ratings. Obviously, the NBA brings huge ratings.
And the final thing that bothers me about the tournament is that the Czech Republic is not in it. And I know why they're not in it because as you said, Russia's not in it and they wanted to have an even number of teams. But you could have easily added the Czech Republic, or Czechia as I think they're called now, and you have 5 teams. So each team plays one extra round robin game and you still pick the top 2 teams to face each other in the final. So they could have done it.
I mean, they could have. I mean, it's a scheduling thing, but all that stuff is achievable. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing that can't be done here, you know? Right. So, yeah, I agree with that.
Now, that's it. That's it for the things that bug me. One observation I had, and this has nothing to do with the tournament or the games. I saw the jersey that Canada is wearing, and it's really nice. So I looked it up to see how much it would cost if I wanted to buy one.
Yeah.
So they have 2 different types, actually. They have what's called the premium jersey, and then they have the authentic pro jersey.
Okay.
The premium one, with no name or no number on the back, is $210.
Oh, my Lord. Well, I mean, that's how much things cost now.
If you want a name and number on the back, it's an additional $70. Now,
it's very nice. It's a very nice jersey.
Right.
It is.
Now, the authentic pro jersey, which is the same one that the players wear on the ice, again, with no name and no number on the back, is $510. And if you want a name and number on the back, you have to add another $70 to that. So suffice to say, I'm not going to be purchasing a jersey, even though it is really nice.
It's really nice. I don't necessarily love the front. It's nice. I really like the front. It looks great from the back. Honestly, the back is gorgeous. The maple leaf, it's like I'm not like 100% sold on it, but it is nice. Yeah. So I don't want to get into politics, and we can talk about Canada versus USA and whatever. But like, I told you something last week, just on a regular conversation, that like, in like 20 years from now, they're going to make a 30 for 30 about the Four Nations face-off, and it's going to all be like in the backdrop of like the Canada-US tensions and Trump and all this. Like I really feel like there's this game tonight, and I'm putting it out here now because your people have already watched this game by the time they're listening to this. I really feel like it's going to be intense tonight. Like the crowd, first of all, the American anthem is 100% going to be booed, like relentlessly. And I really think that the Canada chants are going to be huge in the Bell Center throughout the whole game, during the anthem and throughout the whole game. I think the patriotism is going to be unreal.
I don't know if you've watched the anthems from the first two games, but the PA announcer at the Bell Center has asked the fans not to boo.
No, I know. Josh, you know the Bell Center. You know how it is. They were booing the U.S. anthem in playoff games. Like nothing to do with any of this. You know, like 5 years ago. You know, like it's nothing new here, right? So, there's a lot of people online who are like, "Oh my God, I can't believe they're booing the anthem." Dude, do you watch hockey? Have you ever seen the Bell Center crowd here? Like, this is how it is.
I'm not even concerned about the anthem. I'm more concerned about the game itself because I don't want us to lose.
Look, the USA has a great team. What are you going to do, right? They're a very good team. So is Canada. It all depends on the goalies. Canada does not stack up with the goalies, so we got to try to outplay them. That's all it is.
Right? I mean, in our first game, I think Sweden had 2 or 3 shots on goal in the first period. If you're only going to give up 2 or 3 shots per period, then you don't really need the best goalie.
No, and Binnington did what he had to do, which was make some really clutch saves when he needed to in overtime, right? All right, well, I love talking about sports. We haven't done that in a while. And hockey, Team Canada hockey specifically, is always something that we can both talk very passionately about. So that was great talking about all this stuff with you today. And I'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the Four Nations face-off.